Today I'm here with a very special friend of mine. Would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi guys, my name is Thato Mdi, but I go by Thato. Funnily, my mom didn't get a chance to name me because the whole family named me before she got a chance to. But that's my name. My name is Thato. Nice to meet you guys. Happy to be here.
I'm glad to have you on the podcast. I'm really happy to have you on. The first question, the basic question I like to ask everybody is more or less, what are you studying? And how did you get about choosing what you're studying?
Okay, so I feel like my story in regards to what I'm studying is a bit cliche for like a lot of scientists. So I grew up wanting to be a doctor and like a medical doctor. And I didn't get into medicine after matric. So the next best thing was genetics and physiology. And so I got in at UFS. And I didn't like physiology. So I was like, I don't think the medicine thing is going to work out. And also, the friends that I had in medical school just was struggling. And I was like, I don't think I want that. And genetics was like, it came quite easy. Like, it was easy to understand for me. And then I graduated from my degree. And then I was like, okay, so now what are you going to do? What's going to happen? And then I read The Alchemist, funnily enough. And it brought me back to in grade 11 when I had first heard about genetics. And my teacher was very passionate about it, Mr. Friedemann, and how just it was easy for me in undergrad. Not that I did amazingly, but it wasn't hard for me to pass. So then I was like, let me take this genetics thing more seriously. And so I did a year of occasional studies at UFS. So for those who don't know, occasional studies is when you've graduated, but you're doing extra courses, not necessarily towards a degree, but you can improve your marks. And I just solely focused on genetics, and I fell in love with it. And I applied to UCT, applied everywhere around the country, and now I'm here doing human genetics at this wonderful place.
Dang, it's quite the story, actually. I've heard you mention The Alchemist before, but I've never actually asked you what is it about, Would you want to share a bit about that? And how did it more or less inspire you?
I think I want you to read the book, so I'm not going to tell you exactly what it's about, but I'm going to tell you what made me. So the concept behind the story was basically that the one thing that comes easy to you, like essentially, like I said, genetics came easily to you, but apparently there's this concept where when you are in the place that you're meant to be, there's like beginner's luck, and that's kind of like the universe pushing you towards where you're meant to be. And so I was like, because I shouldn't be saying this like in public, but like because I didn't like try so hard, but it was okay. That was like my thing. I was like, oh, maybe that was my beginner's luck and this is where I was meant to be. And then coming here and just like seeing people in the field made me be like, oh my goodness, I want to be like you guys. 'Cause wow. And then it did kind of become a bit harder, but that means like I needed now to work a little bit harder because beginner's luck has now finished, because now you see that you're in that thing. So yeah. How about you? Do they know what you study?
I actually don't know what I study, eh? I'm always used to interviewing other people, but
What do you study? Tell us your story.
Doing bioinformatics here in UCT. My story, actually. So, this is a brief overview. But originally I wanted to do psychology. And I actually wanted to go overseas. But then that didn't work out, unfortunately. Pandemic and a bit of debates with the parents as to where I should study and whatnot. I did get into university in Canada, but ultimately ended up going to UP. And I did a triple major in human physiology, psychology, and genetics. And while I was doing that, I'll never forget the day that I was in just genetics class, second semester of second year. And one of the professors mentioned that if you're really good at genetics, and I was at the time, like I was doing it in my sleep, and I ended up actually getting a bursary for it. And I wasn't even like studying that much. I was just like, oh, cool. He more or less said, if you're good at that and you like computer stuff, you should check out bioinformatics. And then I'm like, oh, what is that? And then he briefly explained it to everyone in the class. Because normally I'm not paying attention in class. This is a horrible habit. Don't be like me.
Yeah, he does it. He's on his computer doing other stuff.
Since undergrad, I've always been that guy, just here, like doing my own thing on my computer. But yeah, he mentioned like genetics and computer stuff. And I was like, oh, computer stuff, oh, I'm paying attention now. Caught my attention. And then when I did the research at home, like, this is actually interesting. Like, and then I remembered in high school, I did IT and stuff. And I was like, I miss programming. Actually, let me check this out. I applied everywhere, and same as you, got in here, and I'm like, yeah, happy to be here, actually. I'm fully appreciative of the fact that he mentioned it, and I took the risk of coming to UCT.
That's really cool.
Okay. Thanks for the question, actually. No one's actually asked me a question.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, don't worry. It's a conversation this time.
I appreciate it. The next question, I guess. Since you're here now, what do you see for the future of genetics?
So, I don't know if your viewers know about the prospect of personalized medicine. But, you know, in traditional medicine, you go to the doctor because you're feeling unwell, like you have a cough or you're bleeding or, I don't know, you're sick. And the doctor treats the symptoms, basically, and it's like a whole triage situation, like, let's solve the problem that you came here for. But the future that I see is like one day you come into a hospital and they sequence your entire genome. I think we need to give like an intro of like what genetics is before.
You can give them like basics ideas.
A basic, okay. So before we get into that, so genetics is the study of your genome. Your genome is basically like the blueprint, like say your body is like a house or like a complex. So genetics is like the blueprint for the instructions that make up that house. So it's made up of DNA, which is made up of nucleotides, and those nucleotides are basically letters. And 99% of our genome is the same between all individuals, or like 98%, and there's only like a 1 to 2% difference between individuals. And in that 1 to 2% difference, that's how, like, we're different colors of skin. We have different colors of skin, we're different heights. We're different people. Allergies, exactly. Predispositions to sickness and whatnot. But you get your genetic makeup from your parents. So your mom and dad, they get together and they make you. And you get half of your DNA from your mom, half from your dad, and then it makes up you. So going back to the personalized medicine, the goal is that when you come to the hospital, instead of them just triaging your symptoms, they sequence your entire genome and they see what's the medicine most likely suitable for you, if that makes sense. So that also lowers like the potential of side effects, and you know how you can take a drug and 10 years later it causes you cancer and you don't know. So that kind of, we hope to prevent that kind of thing. Yeah. So that's what I see in not so many words.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of misconceptions out there as to what genetics is. Mm-hmm. Like people think we can just fully clone them and stuff like that, or...
I mean, technically, but like it's not that easy.
It's not as easy as it sounds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It costs a lot of money and
Way too much. I don't think anybody wants to put in that effort.
exactly. I mean, are you that special? I mean, you are. Like, you know what I mean, right?
Yeah,
You know what
I
I
hear
mean?
you. I hear you.
But what do you see for it as like someone who's doing half genetics and half computer, like working with big data in genetics? What do you see for the future of genetics?
On my side, since I work more on the data side, I'm actually very curious as to like how we can get. Okay, I don't want to say AI. Yeah, people get scared of AI.
But it is literally.
Yeah, I'd say like it's more about like how we can really efficiently crunch up the numbers and stuff. Because currently, we have quite a bit of data, but the amount of data relative to the size of the population is not enough to truly understand everything. Like, there's so many variations in how your genome is compared to the next person. And even people in the same families still have quite a few variations, like epigenetics and whatnot. What I see for the future is actually being able to collect more of this data and use it responsibly. That's the key thing to mention. People really get really scared when you mention collecting data. Obviously, there has to be responsible use. As to who dictates what responsible use is and how it's done is a very touchy conversation, and there's no simple one answer fits all. But it would be like a really helpful thing to have, because the current data, we know this from what we study and whatnot, is based on a lot of Europeans and a lot of Asian people, and there's not enough African data there to actually help treat people in Africa, you know, or of African descent, I should say.
Yeah, I feel like that's why we should encourage. I feel like that's why we should encourage more Africans to be involved in research. Like, science is cool, guys. I know it sounds boring, and it sounds like working in a lab all day. Kind of is, but it's fun. It's really fun to be in the lab, and like when you find out how important it is that, especially that we do research on our own population and we don't just like accept what's coming from everywhere. Yes, we need their help because they have the resources, like America, Europe, Asia, but we need African voices to advocate for us because we're so diverse. I mean, the whole out of Africa theory. Do you want to explain what the out of Africa theory is?
I don't think I'm the best for that.
Okay. So the out of Africa theory is basically the theory that mankind or the human species evolved from Africa and they migrated to the rest of the world. So if that's the sense, that means that the most of the genetic variation that we have is in Africa, because we're gonna have to like, it's like a genetic lesson, founder effect and bottleneck. But basically, when people leave the population, they don't mingle with the rest of the population that they left with. They now mingle with what they left with. And so the alleles or the genetic variation that they're left with is what becomes more prominent. So they become less diverse because they keep mixing with in their population, and the diversity that started with in Africa is here. So if you were to do research in like a European, oh, how do you say that? European, if you were to do research in a European population, you would miss out on the diversity that they have in Africa. But then that medicine is made in Europe, tested on European populations, or let's say even African Americans, but they also left Africa and so don't have as much diversity, and then bring that medication here. But then because they didn't test for the variation that we have in Africa, it could lead to the adverse drug effects or side effects that just could end up hurting the population more than helping it. So, yes, I don't know what the question was.
We were originally speaking about like what do we see for the future, and then we got to the points of out to Africa. Yeah, no. Currently, within genetics, I don't know if we've mentioned this, but like what currently excites you? like from what you're studying. I don't know if you want to speak about like your projects or something around that area.
Sure. Okay, so what's really exciting for me currently is my project because that's like what I'm immersed in. But what I'm doing is we're doing whole exome sequencing to find a disease-causing gene for dilated cardiomyopathy in a particular family. So I can't obviously mention details, but a certain individual was affected with dilated cardiomyopathy and their brother as well. But the parents did not show signs of having this disease. So we think there might be a genetic component. But the grandfather had history, like died of heart failure. So we're thinking maybe there is a gene that's causing the disease in the family, and I'm trying to find it so that we can have more targeted therapeutic measures to solve the problem. Yeah. Yeah. So just recently, I found that the brother now also has a child. So it makes it more real for me because it's like, if we can find out what it is. Unfortunately, the person who came first passed away. But if we can still find the disease-causing gene, I mean, the child still has a hope because if they have that same gene, then they would be exhibiting symptoms right now. So I just feel like I could help out. I know I'm just doing honors, but if I can find it, we can help, you know? So, yeah, that's what excites me.
Okay.
Talk about your project also.
My project, okay. We're gonna come back to my project.
Okay.
But I just wanted to ask if you could briefly explain what cardiomyopathy, that thing.
Okay.
Because not everyone knows what that is.
Facts. Okay, so dilated cardiomyopathy. Okay, cardiomyopathy, cardio, heart, myopathy, heart muscle disease. So it's a heart muscle disease that causes the left ventricle, so like the bottom chamber, to be dilated or enlarged. And so because it's enlarged and the muscle is thicker, the heart is not strong enough to pump the blood to the rest of the body. So it results in the patient being like having fatigue, shortness of breath, fainting, leg pain, and leg swelling. Yeah, I was trying not to use the big words.
Okay. My project. Okay, so my project is related to viruses.
Okay.
People get really scared after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
COVID.
Yeah. The
Big virus is scary.
pretty much, I don't know if I'll say pandemic. Apparently they like censor that on social media these days.
Really?
Yeah, like, apparently. But yeah. So
Say emic. And
yeah.
censor it out somehow.
Yeah. So pretty much what happens is right now there's this software called RDP that my professors worked on and created for quite a number of years that detects recombination. Recombination's more or less like how viruses mix and match, the same way people mix and match by having two parents that really love each other and then they make a kid. I'll let you fill in the gaps. Same thing with viruses, more or less. And when that happens, they form more dangerous versions of the virus and whatnot that can cause severe health problems, or they could sometimes be defective viruses that don't cause any issues at all. But more often than not, they're not actually that dangerous and they die off. But in rare cases, they do form combinations which are very, how can I say, like, dangerous? Dangerous doesn't feel like a right word to explain it, but like what happened in 2019/2020, if you know what I mean. That is an example of a really bad combination that messed up the world. The aim of my project is to more or less simulate how they might recombine so that we can have a better understanding of these new combinations before they actually happen and to prevent further issues down the road.
It's really cool.
It's not like what Bill Gates did. I don't know if you're familiar with the Bill Gates situation. Okay, so like Bill Gates and his foundation, as far as I know, I don't know the full details, but apparently they managed to simulate something very similar right before 2019 happened,
Oh,
like a year before it happened.
really? Okay.
And a lot of people are like, did he, very suspicious. Suspicious?
Oh, now I'm suspicious of you.
No. But yeah, that's my projects more or less. Since coming here, would you say that your perspective on like what it means to do honors, masters, and PhD has changed? Because I know on my side it's changed a lot. Like I thought, it's just you're gonna study this and that, 2-3 years, then you're done. But nah, it's not that simple. Like, how do you say your perspective's changed?
So like, first of all, like the whole traditional studying way completely, like for now it's changed. So I'll start by describing how our honors year like structure is. So the first 6 months was kind of like undergrad, where you go to class, come back, do some like lab work. At least now you're finally in the lab. Some of us weren't in the lab. I know some people were in the lab when they were studying. But yeah, and then now there's no traditional teaching. Now it's like you go and like research. So I really enjoyed studying from slides and having a lecturer come and like break things down and explain to me. And now it's in your own hands. Now you need to break things down for other people and like make the slides and like summarize things. And it's completely changed my whole perspective. Like, I'd often like maybe once in undergrad, I'd often like find myself judging one of the lecturers because I'm like, I mean, what are you saying? And then now you realize the amount of work that goes into like trying to break it down. It's completely changed, but it's really cool. I feel like a grade 1 learner again, because I need to like learn things from the beginning again. But it's really cool, just having access to some of the most top professionals in the field in the world here, and having access to them to learn from them. And it shows, it like gives a stepping stone to be like, you could be that kind of person as well. But yeah, I feel like it also just made me feel a lot of empathy towards the people that have taught me before, realizing how much work they put in and how, not necessarily hard, but just how much work goes into it to just like making a concept that is so complicated very simple. And then now going into masters, they say like in masters they're gonna leave us even more, and I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Like, I'm supposed to contribute to the body of knowledge, but I don't know what I'm doing. But I guess that's what it's about. It's about finding out and like contributing. It's really, really cool, but it's completely changed. I didn't know what to expect, but this is definitely not what I expected. But I'm not unhappy with it. Yeah. How has it changed for you? Because you said it also changed for you.
On my side, I'd say on my side, the biggest change, or like in my perspective, was that I'm not gonna lie to you. Hey, this might sound silly to some people, but genuinely, I thought like as researchers, they'll tell us like, "Ah, cool, we need you to go and investigate XYZ, and then come back with the dates and tell us what's up." Once I got you, realize like, nah, you're gonna learn some stuff, and then they're gonna be like, "Ah, cool, what do you bring to the table?" So what do you mean? What that brings? I just got you. We just arrived.
So what's your idea?
It's like I don't have ideas.
Supposed to tell me? No. Find out. What's the gap? Fill it.
Yeah, and also like thinking that after undergrad, like I know what a virus is, you know, like I know what DNA is. And then you go to like Google Scholar, you download your research papers, and like I did not know that. I don't know anything about DNA. I don't know anything about viruses. Like, what do you mean there's more to know? Then they're like, nah, there's like 7 classes of viruses, for example. I'm like, what do you mean there's 7 classes? It's like, geez, bro. And then you go and read, and then there's just more to read, and it just never ends. Yeah, that was the shock I had. It's pretty cool, don't get me wrong.
I
Like,
didn't know what you signed up for.
yeah.
But now that you're here, are you happy?
In case you didn't hear the question, now that I'm here, am I happy? Definitely, yeah, no, I'm definitely happy. It wasn't what I expected, because as I said, I expected them to more or less just tell me like, okay, go research this for like the next 6 months, and then tell us what data you got from it. Versus now, like actually knowing like, okay, you have your own ideas, and we trust you to come with an idea. I like that. Like you actually want my input. Whereas before, the input really didn't matter. They just told you what to do in undergrad and stuff.
Valid.
Yeah. Okay. Thinking next question, because we actually discussed quite a bit.
That's a lot, yeah. Like, this is good. Like,
Yeah. I'm thinking like the researchers here. Is there any researchers in particular that inspire you?
okay. I think for me, it's like my supervisor, because I mean, she's the one that I know, I've worked closely with, and so I like know more. So her name is Associate Professor Hasnat Shabudin, and she is the director of the Cardiovascular Genetics group in the Cape Heart Institute. And just like they've done a lot of work already. They already identified a novel gene that causes arrhythmogenic cardiomyopathy. So I've already explained what cardiomyopathy is, but this one is basically the heart doesn't beat at the right rhythm. So you know that but up, it's messed up. So they found a disease-causing gene for that. So that's like active work that they've done, and that's like what I'm trying to do now as well. But also, we have a zebrafish lab in the CHI, and what we're trying to do is bring CRISPR to Africa and gene editing of an animal model in Africa. And so we would be the first institute in the entire continent to be doing CRISPR. And so, like, when you see the Nobel Prize for CRISPR was only gotten in 2020. And, like, you know, I mean, Africa's usually slow to these things, but I feel like, yay, right? In a few months, we're going to be doing that. And that's what I hope to do in my master's as well. And so she inspires me. She's always really busy, like, supervising with everyone, but she's pretty hands-on, and she knows so much off of the top of her head, and I think that's so cool. Like, you mentioned a gene, she's like, oh yeah, this is the pathway, and I'm like, wow, like, you know. So that's who inspires me a lot. Who inspires you? Sorry.
Okay.
Who inspires you, Zia?
Okay. Before I mention who inspires me, I feel like I should mention that it's Women's Day. So inspirational women in STEM, slay, you know. Period.
Happy Women's Day. Happy Women's Day.
Period. Who inspires me? I have to say it's also my supervisor, Darren Martin, or Darren P. Martin. That dude knows everything. Like, I feel like whenever I have a question, this man always has an answer, and it's not in a way that's like rude or whatnot, or like someone just answering for sake of answering. Like, he actually just knows. Like, this man is a walking like Google or something, bro.
So cool.
Yeah, like we have seminars on like Thursdays, 1 p.m. In Wolfson, and then people present their projects and like discuss what they've been doing in their PhD and masters, and there'd be fields that are like not even close to us at all. Like somebody deep in like cancer and stuff like that. Keep in mind, this guy studied virology, I think. and then he became a bioinformatician who focuses on viruses and stuff, RDP, blah blah. But then there'd be stuff like down in cancer, or stuff within like genetics, or there'd be stuff within like molecular, or like what do you call this, mass spec and stuff like that. This man will have like a detailed conversation with somebody who only does this all day long. Like this is their specialty. He'll know what's happening and be able to ask like sensible questions. You know, I'm just sitting there, I'm struggling to even understand what the slides were about. Like there'd be 5 or 6 slides, I'll be like, what? I didn't catch a thing. But he would have caught all of that and be like, okay, but why did you do this? Wouldn't it be better to do that? And then the person will be there like, I think you're right. I'm like, what do you mean? This man just knows everything. Like, it's crazy.
It is.
Like, I wish I could be on that level, you know?
We're getting there though.
Yeah, gotta start somewhere. Okay. There's not too many questions left, actually. Like, okay. We're gonna take a short break.
Brainy babble. Brainy babble. If you got a brain and you like to babble, come on, baby babble.
Robot. Okay, we are back from our, what do you call it, scheduled break or intermission? Intermission. You know, so I think we've been chatting for quite a bit. I have 2 more questions before we wrap this up. The first question before we wrap this up is, now that you've gone down the route of genetics, or you've chosen this route, how do you feel about not doing medicine anymore? You know, what do you say to somebody that wanted to get into medicine but they didn't?
Okay, so I still want the title. So I'm hoping to continue until I get my PhD so I can still be Dr. Mdi. But like I said earlier, I didn't like physiology. It's not all that it's cut out to be. I can't say from experience because obviously I didn't do it. But I'm really glad that I ended up doing genetics just because I find it a lot more interesting. And I like that we focus on that science. Because I feel like the medicine people do everything, like anatomy, physiology, hematology, genetics, and ooh.
It's a lot of pieces.
It's a lot of, But it's also, I really enjoy the nicheness of it. I feel like, I don't know if that's right to say. But I like the science, and I like being in the lab. And the more I interacted with it, I realized I don't think I really want to be working with people every day and smiling. And I don't have to do that if I'm in the lab. Well, obviously, to a certain degree, but most of it is me doing my own thing, pipetting, and I'm still contributing to the body of knowledge. And the whole medical field needs scientists. We need the research. And that's why when we got here, we found that so many people that even did medicine even go into like the science like genetics, or they specialize in one of the sciences. So it's still really important work, and I really like that. Yeah, and I still want the title, and I can still get that. So I don't feel like I lost out in any way. And you just find what ticks your clock, makes your clock tick. Yeah. For you, did you want to do medicine? Okay. You wanted to do psychology. Are you upset that you're not in psychology, or?
Actually not upset that I'm not in psychology. It's something that I still do take an interest into. Like, I still will, if I get the chance, watch some YouTube videos about it, read an article or two. Like, it does interest me. It's just something I think I'll come back to later down the line. Not that I'll ever lost the passion for psychology. I just had to consider my options. Like, hey, psychology is cool and all, but there's so many people applying for it versus stuff in the scientific field. Like, not everyone's keen to do science, but there's actually valuable research to be done out here. Like, there's a lot of...
The world wouldn't go around without science, eh?
Yeah, like, science is really important and whatnot. Not to say psychology isn't a form of science, but it's not the science you picture when you say science. I just have to specify that. Yeah, like, I do see myself coming back to psychology after I've completed my route in bioinformatics.
Are you thinking of a master's?
Yeah,
Fun.
I definitely want to do my master's. Oh, you think of masters? Masters.
Potato, potato, tomato, tomato, masters and masters. Yes, like I said, I hope to do when I say when, because I'm optimistic, when I find the disease-causing gene edited in the zebrafish, once our zebrafish lab is going up. So I'm really excited to do that for my master's project. Yes. Cheese and crackers.
Okay, I think to wrap up the interview, I normally like to ask this question to different people. Is there any piece of advice or little nuggets of knowledge you'd like to share with people? Not necessarily in your field, but in general, just any random piece of advice.
Life is what you make it. I know that's such a cliche, but I think I'm going to say life is what you make it and mindset is everything. Because there will be bad days and good days no matter what you're doing. But one thing I learned is that everything that happens to you, if it gives you joy, is a blessing, and if it doesn't, is a lesson. So everything happens for a reason. And if you have the right mindset, you can get through anything. Yeah.
I think that's a beautiful note to end the episode on. Cheese and crackers indeed. Just like to thank you for showing up on the podcast and sharing your story, sharing what you know. And I really do hope that if you made it this far, you got some valuable information out of this, or whether you use the information or not is up to you.
Yes, yeah.
But yeah, that's that.